Hi, and welcome to CommieCast, a very special CommieCast today to discuss some very important developments in Venezuela with Comrade Carolus Wimmer, the International Secretary of the Venezuelan Communist Party. We're also going to publicise our very important Defend the Venezuelan Working Class appeal. Both the Communist Party of Britain and the Young Communist League have responded to solidarity appeals from the working class, Front for National Struggle, and the Central Unitary of Venezuelan Workers, two revolutionary trade union confederations. The appeal looks to generate £5,000 in order to supply a range of technological equipment to support the workers' capacity to break the media blockade and to take their revolutionary message to the people. This is very important, so please help out. I will put details of how you can contribute in the website which accompanies this podcast. Now, Carolus has been the International Secretary of the Communist Party in Venezuela since 1996. He was born in Munich in Germany and in 1970 emigrated to Venezuela. He's a factory worker, holds a social science doctorate, and has had 51 years in the party. Former director of the Cara Training School, a member of Venezuela's parliament from 2015 to 2020, and the editor currently of the Debate Abierto publication, which means open debate in English. Hell, a good job I was here to translate that one. Right, let's get into the nitty-gritty here. There's a very widespread misconception that Venezuela is a socialist country. It isn't. Between 1999 and 2011, the private sector's share of economic activity actually increased from 65% to 71%. It remains around that level at the moment. However, there's been a recent wave of privatizations by the Maduro government, so that figure is likely to increase. These privatizations have coincided with attacks on the Communist Party after the ending of a long period of alliance with the ruling United Socialist Party of Venezuela in 2020. Carolus, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. What do you think lies... Thank you for being here. What do you think lies behind these recent privatizations in Venezuela? And are they related to the attacks on the Communist Party?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'm grateful for the opportunity given to us by the Communist Party of Britain. And on behalf of the Communist Party of Venezuela, I would like to greet all the audience listening to us. The privatizations in Venezuela are a consequence of a neoliberal policy of the present government of the Social Democratic Party in Venezuela. It is the beginning of the sale of the national patrimony, which violates the constitution that was approved in 1999 by the Venezuelan people on the initiative of President Chavez. It is the same capitalist policy that bankrupted the country in the last century, and they had a popular response in 1989 with the Popular Rebellion, and in 1992 with the two military rebellions in which President Chavez participated. These privatizations also imply a not always hidden pact of the social democratic government, both with the opposition of the national right wing and a developing agreement with the US government and the European Union. The government wants to save itself from the consequences of the imperialist policy of blockade and sanctions by handing over the wealth of the country that belongs to the people. As it is typical for the social democracy, they do not trust the people, they do not trust the workers, but they extend the economic, political, and police repression against any criticism and protest. President Chavez would say that they smell of sulfur and sold their souls to the devil. That is why the attacks against the Communist Party of Venezuela do not surprise us. It is a consequence of the successful class struggle in Venezuela, labor against capital. But we know that the dialectics of class struggle is more complex in Venezuela. There are two main contradictions. The first one, capital against labor, and the second one, imperialism against national sovereignty. Resolving this duality is not always easy for the Communist Party, but we will win, comrade.
Thank you very much, comrade. Explain to us, why is the Maduro government aligning more closely with capital, do you think? And why are they sitting at the same table with some of the fascists? Who has got to them? And what is the motivation of Maduro's regime?
A very good and important question, comrades. Nationally, it seems incomprehensible at the international level. The general opinion is in the national sphere is an anti-imperialist government is maintained in Venezuela. You hear and read the propaganda of the Social Democratic Party and the government using the concepts of revolution, Bolivarian socialism, and the sons of Chavez, etc. That was in the time of Chavez. With the death of Chavez, the reality is totally different. Anti-communism, packed with the fascist right, packed with the United States, packed with the European Union, that is packed with capitalism. Something typical and historical known of right-wing social democracy. And this pact with the class enemy, capitalism, and its superior face, imperialism, has a high price for the people. Low salaries and starvation pensions, currently $25 a month. $25 a month. More authoritarian government decisions, more repression by police and security forces. And this furious attack is also directed against the communists. Our comrades lose their jobs. Other times, the comrades and their families are threatened with death. The communist deputy, our General Secretary, Oscar Figuera, in Parliament is denied the right to speak. Can you imagine it? Since 2017, there has been a total media censorship against our party. And unfortunately, our comrades and other fighters from the trade union and peasant movement are also assassinated. Naturally, this affects our ability to fight. The class enemy knows it. But the Communist Party of Venezuela, with an existence of 91 years, is going to emerge victorious to continue defending the interests of the workers of the city and the countryside. The Communist Party was founded in complete secrecy. We overcame many years of military dictatorship, of repression in the so-called bourgeois democracy. The Communist Party was forged in armed struggle, and we were always victorious. The history belongs to us, comrade.
Thank you very much, comrade. These are very important messages to get over, because this story is not told anywhere in the West, because we are bombarded with the usual propaganda about Venezuela. You've given some indication there of what the implications for the Venezuelan working class have been since the country's diff to the right, since the passing of Chavez. Why do you think that the ruling party, the Socialist Unitary Party of Venezuela, remains so popular amongst the masses? And specifically, how will the Venezuelan Communist Party and its allies respond?
Okay, there are two questions inside, comrade.
Sure.
First, it's the implications for the working class in Venezuela. We have already mentioned the right-wing social democratic positions in the current government that defends, first of all, capital, national, international companies, which brings immense suffering to the working class and to all salaried sectors. The Communist Party is aware that part of the implications came from the imperialist hybrid war and the fascist attacks against the interests of the people. But it cannot be an excuse for a bad government. It cannot be an excuse for an anti-worker government. Take, for example, the oil industry, the heart of the Venezuelan economy. There is a plan underway to dismiss thousands of workers, leaving them at home and replace them with outsourced employment through subcontracting companies. The workers are accused of causing accidents actually caused by the lack of a required maintenance in the oil industry. The staff is the victim of harassment and threats of criminalization. For that, the Communist Party of Venezuela demands respects the fundamental rights of the workers. The network of businesses that violates the Venezuelan legal system must be investigated. Repairs and expansion of production can be fulfilled by our own workers. With the working class, the Communist Party organizes mobilizations with popular and class character to demand, first, worthy wages and social benefits. Second, respect for our rights as a working class. Third, restitution of social benefits. And fourth, no more criminalization of the workers' struggle. If it would be a real revolutionary government, we would not have any of these problems. The second part of your question, comrade, why the PSUV remains so popular amongst the masses, and how do the Communist Party respond? I will say to all our audience in Great Britain, this is a fallacy. This is false propaganda now. The time has changed. Nationally, the Social Democratic Party controls most of the state apparatus. To get a job in one of the ministries or other institution of the national government or regional governments, you have to be a member of the party. But in November 2021, last year, in the regional elections, the opposition won the elections in votes by a wide margin. However, due to manipulation by the Supreme Court of Justice and the National Electoral Council, controlled by the government, many of the winning candidates were not recognized. Among them, among them 3 victorious candidates of the Communist Party in mayorships. In the state of Barinas, emblematic because Commander Chavez was born there and the Chavez family ruled for 20 years. The Social Democratic Party lost in November. The Supreme Court of Justice invalidated the election, and there were new elections for governor in Barinas in January this year. This time, the defeat of the government was more forceful. 55% for the opposition against only 41% for the government candidate. This is now the reality. The time has changed. Before, with Chavez, there was always great victories. But now, the policy of privatization and anti-worker policy naturally will have more and more results against the government against the Social Democratic Party, and of course, the great task of the communists, revolutionaries, and anti-imperialists is to keep the people united with the perspective of the struggle for an independent and sovereign country and for due scientific socialism, comrade.
Exactly, comrade. Very good words. And this is why the appeal is so important. So I can remind listeners again, help us out a little bit here, give the money, because this is a very important task for the working class, not just in Venezuela, but across the planet. Comrade, does the party in Venezuela now regret the alliance with the Chavez movement and with the Social Democratic movement and its heirs? Or do you think that the benefits of the alliance were sufficiently large to justify the necessary compromises?
The answer is very important, because also internationally there is a criticism against our party. It seems outside that we are guilty of the rupture with the socialist party. No, it's not right. For that, the Communist Party was the first party to support Chavez in 1998. In a great crisis of state and the threat of a military intervention by the United States, this was the reality in this moment. The alliance with Chavez was a great historical act of our party in defense of our politics of patriotic, popular, anti-imperialist, and revolutionary unity. For the communist, Chavez was always a strategic ally, despite difference in tactics at times. No problem. Chavez was a revolutionary. He fought for Latin America. He promoted international solidarity with Cuba, China, Vietnam, with Africa, and so on. But we cannot equate Chavez with his alleged heirs. We cannot think it's automatically continuous the politics of Chavez. It must be understood internationally that after Chavez, there was a total rupture of this revolutionary policy in the framework of the struggle for national liberation in Venezuela. It is often thought that the so-called social democratic heirs are a mechanical continuation of the Chavez government. This is totally incorrect. It is a rupture in all aspects of the national life. And you mentioned in the beginning the privatization without the discussion with the people, with the workers, is an anti-revolutionary policy. It's a policy in favor of the class enemy and against the workers. However, the Communist Party maintains its policy of unity, ready to talk with other forces, by defending its principles in defense of the right of the workers in the city and the countryside against capitalist interests. If there's a change in the government's policy in this regard, there is a possibility of talking. It's our position, comrade.
Thank you very much, comrade. That takes us on to the next question. Please give your view on the prospects for Venezuela in the short term and then in the longer term. What do you think is going to happen, comrade?
The answer is not easy, comrade.
Not at all.
Look in the future. But of course, the current negotiation of the Social Democratic Party, especially with the United States and the European Union, will bring benefits to the bourgeoisie, and the calamities continue for the working class. For the Venezuelan people, the next few years imply great sacrifices because of the neoliberal capitalist policy and great struggles to defend and sometimes regain labor rights. In a sense, there are the same causes that produced the popular uprising of the people in February 1989, as well as the military rebellions in 92. At this time, there is no glimpse in an improvement of miserable wages, no end of immigration due to the lack of jobs is in sight, no professional prospects for studying and work for the youth are in sight, no change in privatization of the industrial and business sector, but also in the education and health sectors. However, the communists work and fight, and the Venezuelan people work and fight for radical and revolutionary change. The hope for socialism that it emerged with President Chavez is alive, and is a great task of the communists to accompany the people in this fight. The challenge to transform Venezuela continues to be a pending task, hence the urgency of a revolutionary program that manages to amalgamate the social and political force around the collective leadership that is capable to overcoming the backward relations of dependent capitalist production and the despotic presidentialism that serves him, comrade.
And in some ways, the most important question for us across here, how can we help? What can we do to further this cause?
We are aware of the power of international solidarity, comrades. We thank the Communist Party of Britain. We thank the British trade union movement that we know personally for the anti-imperialist solidarity to defend ourselves against the interventionist policy of the United States and the European Union. We also appreciate the solidarity against the intentions of the Venezuelan Social Democratic Party to outlaw the Communist Party. This threat exists, and it's not the first time. Already in the 60s, last century, with social democratic governments and members of the Socialist International, the Communist Party of Venezuela was outlawed. The communists persecuted, imprisoned, tortured, disappeared. It is important that the British working class knows this current reality in Venezuela after Chavez. This interview is an excellent example of how you can help us face the current internal crisis in our country. This year in November, the Communist Party of Venezuela will celebrate its 60th Party Congress. You are invited, and we hope you will be present. It's very important for us that we always exchange information, updated information, and also coordinate the national and international class struggle and the struggle for socialism, comrade.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I would love to be there. Comrade, it has been an enormous privilege talking to you this afternoon, albeit morning for you. And you have actually given us some incredibly useful information and corrected many misconceptions. So it just leaves me to go ahead and say thank you very much indeed, to remind people about the appeal. We do have other events which we're going to do to go ahead and further the cause and to give publicity to the cause. I will put them and some other information on the website which will accompany this podcast. Carolus, before we go, Is there anything else you want to say to us here in Great Britain and Europe that you haven't said already in your very full and useful answers to our questions?
Okay, first of all, thank you very much, comrades. We hope to see each other soon. The British and Venezuelan communists in different struggles at the international levels. Perhaps soon in Spain, in the world mobilization against the NATO summit, very important date, or some of the events that some other communist party in Europe have planned, such in Germany in August or in September in Portugal. We are and remain internationalists of the working class, all workers in Britain, and naturally our comrades of the Communist Party of Britain can count on the Venezuelan communists. Our common goal is the conquest of socialism, the welfare of people, the social justice. That fight unites us and makes us win. Bourgeois propaganda wants to make us disappear. They attack us daily with lies. But we are many around the world, and we will be more every day, comrade. Venceremos. We will win.
Inspiring stuff, comrade. Thank you very much indeed. And thanks to you for listening. This has been CommieCast. We are anti-fascist, anti-racist, anti-capitalist, but very much for the working class, wherever they may be. Thank you very much indeed. Good night to you all.
Thank you.